In a tweet Monday morning, Trump argued that former FBI Director Robert Mueller's investigation could go on even longer so it wrongfully impacts the midterm elections, which is what the Democrats always intended. Typically, employees of the Department of Justice refrain from making any major decisions in investigations in the immediate weeks preceding an election, but legal experts and former prosecutors say Mueller's investigation is anything but typical. While they anticipate that Mueller will stick with long-standing agency protocol and not issue any indictments in the month leading up to the November elections, they also don't think it will dramatically slow down his investigation. 99% of his work has been done under the surface. The only time we hear from Bob Mueller is when he has something to say in court, said Chuck Rosenberg, a former U.S. attorney who served as counselor to Mueller and chief of staff to former FBI Director James Comey. Respecting the general rule in not interfering in an election will have no effect on his investigation. From his perspective, it will be business as usual. Ironically, Trump himself benefited from a violation of this norm in 2016. Many Democrats argue that Comey's decision to send a letter to Congress that he was looking into Hillary Clinton's emails on October 28, 11 days before the presidential election, essentially cost her the election, and there is evidence that it may have proven decisive in key states. But there is no actual law barring justice employees from making major decisions until after an election. Department of Justice employees are entrusted with the authority to enforce the laws of the United States and with the responsibility to do so in a neutral and impartial manner. This is particularly important in an election year, then Attorney General Eric Holder wrote in a memo to DOJ employees in March of 2012. Simply put, politics must play no role in the decisions of federal investigators or prosecutors regarding any investigations. Employees typically receive a memo similar to Holder's during a presidential election year. The last one issued was in 2016. But the memos do not typically lay out guidelines or timelines for when employees should stop issuing any decisions. In Holder's memo, for instance, he told employees that if they had questions they should contact the Public Integrity section of the Criminal Division. You'll notice, the memo doesn't really say what the right thing to do is, said Barbara McQuaid, who served as former United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan during the Obama administration. It doesn't say don't file indictments, or don't investigate, it just says consult with the Public Integrity section and think things through. None of the indictments we've seen so far strike me as the type that would be too politically sensitive to be filed too close to an election. Especially an election in which the president is not on the ballot, said Eric Columbus, who worked as an attorney in the DOJ during the Obama administration. Those are not indictments that suggest guilt by the president or anyone close to him. If Mueller is continuing to indict people in that way, then I don't think there's much concern regarding the proximity of the election. Columbus said the situation would be different if Mueller decided to indict a close Trump associate, and that indictment directly implicated the president in something. At that point, he said, Mueller would probably be reluctant to announce that too close to the election. But he did say former Trump campaign head Paul Manafort's trial on charges of bank fraud and tax evasion, which is scheduled for July, will likely be able to proceed without allegations of election interference. And all experts were in agreement that Mueller's team's work would continue in that month leading up to the midterms, even if he potentially held off on major announcements.